Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Firefighters podcast, where we seek to develop, inspire, and motivate the world of the emergency services operator through a series of wide-ranging conversations. Now, before we go any further, just hit that rate, follow, or subscribe button on whatever platform you're listening to. It's a key performance indicator for us and helps us reach even more people. Now, here's what we've got for you today. Welcome to our final part of our Lancashire mini-series. It's been a real privilege to bring these episodes to you. And across the last 3 episodes, we've moved, if you remember, we'll go back and have a listen, from real scrutiny of looking at what's actually happening out there and also looking at that national level that we have here in the UK. That was with Dan Stevens. Then we moved to the organisational doctrine and unified thinking of Gerard. Then we went to the science, training evolution and practical skill development with Luke Garden. And for this 4th and final session, I'm going to bring it home with someone who sits right at the centre of our UK tactical firefighting movement, one of many, but it's Dave Berry. Dave is tactical firefighting training lead at Greater Manchester Fire and Rescue Services and one of the founding voices behind Tactical Firefighting UK. Dave's got more than 25 years on the run. He's taught across the Northwest, across Europe, across the Balkans, and shoulder to shoulder with some of the most respected fire behaviour instructors in the world. But what makes him really cool and what makes him such a strong voice for this closing episode isn't just what he's learned, but it's also about what he's built and what he's part of building as we're moving forward. Because Dave takes the story of this mini-series and kind of flips it back onto us in the UK directly. He talks honestly about the days when training in different services looked almost identical year after year for like decades. Same hose runs, same BA shuffles, same yard drills, the same let's build a dam that's shaped like a triangle with some ladders. This is just what we do. Then he walks the room through the moment he realised everything needed to shift. And that was when a small WhatsApp group of instructors started sharing ideas instead of just guarding them. And that's just kind of grown. That group's become Tactical Firefighting UK, and that network has quietly become one of the most important catalysts, potentially, for some of the changes that are starting to happen in the UK Fire and Rescue Service as it evolves around tactical firefighting. Through that collaboration, they've pushed forward water mapping, alternative hose packs, flow testing, improved branch techniques, better line management, realistic training observations, and far more mature understanding of a size up at an incident, as an example. We're really pushing hard to cut down on duplication, cut down on just mapping over standards and challenging some poor doctrine that's out there. And given what did feel like isolated instructors in small services, the confidence and evidence to try and introduce change and be part of it in the organisations that they work. Dave's session ties every theme of this series together, I think. Dan showed us what the data was, what the data is actually showing, what it really means. Gerard gave us another international perspective, showing us how doctrine needs to be structured. Lucas, I feel like, showed us how training needs to evolve. And Dave's going to bring that spotlight back into the UK on how the UK Fire Service can actually make that evolution happen through community, through shared learning, and through refusing to let services just drift in isolation. It gives us an uncomfortable reminder, I think, that ego, secrecy, and tradition has held the UK back for a little bit too long, and the future belongs to firefighters who collaborate, challenge each other, and honestly just share what works. So this final episode is a call to action for anyone who wants to stop talking about modernising the job and actually starts doing it. So let's get in there for our final part 4 with Dave Berry. I'll see you on the other side.
Yeah, thanks everyone. Particularly thanks. I didn't expect that many people to still be here on a Friday, to be fair. I did think, because we are at that point now where you've got one eye on the clock and you've got one eye on the exit. So I appreciate you all staying. Thank you for that. Not long, don't worry. I'll keep it short. Lewis has asked me to come here because I've done the exemplary thing, the amazing thing that's probably going to get me a knighthood of starting a WhatsApp group. And honestly, that is all I've done. That's it. That is literally it. That is all I've done. But I'm going to talk about why that has been important, the impact that it has had, the impact that it is going to have in the future as well. You've seen the title, Firefighting by Tactics, not by Postcodes. I'm going to touch on that a little bit as well, which is a little bit of my history with the fire service as well. One thing I will say, never ever, for all the trainers, never ever start a presentation with an apology. So I am going to apologise before we get started. I have been told that every so often I do slip into a little bit of an Alan Partridge mode. So do look out for that. Do you get Alan Partridge in No, don't worry about it. You'll still see it. It's still there. Okay. 1999. Now, what we like to do, me and Boxy, so this is Boxy, one of my trainers. He's probably my best trainer because I've only got one. What we like to do in our presentations with the operational crews in Manchester is take people back in time. So we normally go back to 1995. For the purposes of this presentation, we're going to look at 1999, and there is a reason for that. What we have found, what we didn't anticipate, and it does upset us, that sometimes when we say to people about, do you remember such a year, so like 1999, invariably someone in the room says, yeah, I wasn't even born. Which isn't what we were actually going for. And I know there's people sat there now going, yeah, actually, I don't remember a great deal about it. But there are plenty of people who may remember. The thing about it, you've seen the video playing there, it looks really dated. It wasn't that long ago. 1999 does not feel that long ago. But that stuff looks really, really dated. And there's other things on there as well. This is what computers looked like in 1999. So if you ever went into PC world, they were plastered with stickers like that. You had Windows 98, you turn it on, it'd go da-da, like it's done something amazing. It hasn't. All you've done is turned it on. This was a great picture that we picked up on. Anyone that was around at the time will know the significance of that image. The mouse has stopped working, so we had the joy of taking it to bits, scraping the dirt off, putting it back in, and you don't get that anymore, do you? That doesn't happen. The boom boxes, cassettes. And there's another picture I could put up there. You could have a picture of a cassette with a pencil. Anybody know the significance of those two items going together? Yep. And this is what I'm saying. So it was a very, very long time ago. I mean, that was where we got our audio from. Podcasts, no such thing. Didn't happen. We wouldn't know what they were. We wouldn't even believe in the day that you would talk about things like Spotify, world's most indestructible phone. And that was where the technology was at. So why am I talking about 1999? Jim, I think you said to me earlier that I don't seem to age. That is categoric proof that, in fact, I do. And in my defense, that hairstyle was extremely fashionable. It was the pinnacle. And it'll come back again, believe me. That's what I tell the kids. So I started at a place called Oswald Twizzle Fire Station. Everybody from Lancashire will likely remember or know of Oswald Twizzle. For those not in the area, it is a real place. It does exist. It's not just a place that we've invented. But that's where I started. That's where I applied my trade. I started as a retained firefighter with Lancashire. Initial training. This is what it consisted of. Hose running using coiled hoses. The BA shuffle, we've spoke about that quite a lot, not just today, but also yesterday. The directional search pattern, and there was a big focus at the time as we moved sort of into the summer of 99 when I did the BA element on spray patterns. I remember doing some exercises out in the yard over there, on the car park actually, with a brand new branch. So we used to have a great big trigger branch, and then that got ripped out and we got given a delta branch, and we thought it was absolutely fantastic. And spray is the thing. That is what we do now, we spray everything. Okay? Ladders and pumps. We used to split a ladder up, put it into a little triangle, put water in it so we could pump water out of it. And the amount of times that has come in handy, I cannot count, literally. We did an out-of-control jet, we did a bit of extrication, we did a little bit of rope. So that was my sort of introduction to the fire service. That was a 1-week course, followed in the summer by, I think it was another 1-week course. This is where I changed the hairstyle a little bit. I've not changed the hairstyle much since then. The only difference is you can see more head through the hair than you could then. 2004, joined Greater Manchester Fire and Rescue Service in Haywood Fire Station in Manchester. Did my initial training. You're not going to believe this, but 5 years after my initial training, we did hose running, and it was mainly coiled hose. We did the BA shuffle, we did directional, but then we did the compartmental search pattern, and then the argument started.
This episode is brought to you in partnership with Godiva Limited. Godiva is one of the world's leading providers of specialist equipment for emergency services market. Godiva produces a comprehensive range of fire pumps, including vehicle-mounted, portable, and their cutting-edge integrated total water flow control system, SAMFlows. I've been using Godiva my entire career as a reliable pump on the fire ground. It is such a crucial element of a successful firefighting team that you want to empower your crews with the very best, reliable, quality product. Reach out to our partners by checking the notes in the podcast. Now back to the show.
Where are you from, Dave? Lancashire. Are you? Whereabouts? Blackburn. Where? Blackburn. Why saying Blackburn? because there's an R in it. So for those that don't know Manchester, they don't pronounce R's. Car park. So when I'm there and I say car park, it's the absolute pinnacle of humour for all Mancunians. Anyway, compartmental search. So then the question then gets thrown, right, so you're from Lancashire, you do directional all the time, don't you? Yeah. Oh, we do compartmental. You've got to admit it's better, haven't you? Well, I don't know, because you've not taught it me yet, to be fair, so I have absolutely no idea. What else did we do? So we did, again, focus on gas cooling. So that was the new name for spray. We now call it gas cooling. We then got a ladder and we split it into 3 parts and filled it with water, and it was told you'll use this all the time at incidents. Again, we did that. We did extrication. We did rope. The main thing of what I'm getting at, though, is there wasn't a great deal of progression. The things I learned in 1999 were pretty much the same things I learned in 2004, apart from compartmental. Question for you now. Your own organisations, your own initial training courses, significantly different or still pretty much following the same pattern? And I'll be honest, even for ourselves, we're still following very much the same thing up until recently. If anyone knows John Muggleton in Manchester, he's recently took the initial training lead role on. He's had a little team looking at changing a few things. And things like, specifically, and be honest, have you ever at an incident thought, let's get the triple extension ladder, let's turn it into a triangle, let's put a salvage sheet in it, fill it with water and pump that onto the fire? The next question is, if not, why do we spend a day or 2 days of an initial training course teaching people to do that, but not bothering with things like thermal imaging, etc., etc.? So these are the questions that Muggsy has gently encouraged by us, I would say, but these are the things that they're looking at for their initial training course. Right, so there's another thing about the fire service at the time. So I said, one thing that I was told early on, or asked early on, which is better, compartmental or directional? And I'd ask you the same thing. You know, all of you think about it the same thing. Compartmental or directional? Which one is the better search pattern? And it's a ridiculous question, isn't it? Because if I follow that up with another question, think of every BA where you've ever been on, and which pattern did you use? I'd say the majority of it, you didn't. You just went to the fire, put the fire out. You went to wherever the objective was, and you dealt with the objective. And that's the strange thing. So if you have Ramsbottom and Rottenstone, so they're 2 towns that border each other from different counties, they turn out. Doctrine says they can't really work together. They can't do anything because one county does compartmental, one county does directional. Got all these issues. If you actually speak to the crews at the station, if you speak to Rottenstall crews, if you speak to Ramsbottom crews, we actually do pretty much the same thing. We go to the job, we deal with the objective, and we do it a lot more direct. But going back again to 1999, 2004, having a foot in both camps, being whole time and retained at the same time, what I noticed early on in my career was that what fire services liked to do in those days was that. Whatever we're doing, we're going to put an arm around it, and we're not going to tell you, we're not going to share it with you. We're going to do that, we're going to do our own thing. We might have a little peek over and see if we can copy a little bit of yours, but generally, what we do is what we do. And I think you said earlier, insular, that is the word. We were insular, we were all islands. There was very, very little collaboration. That leads to a lot of problems, and it has led to a lot of problems. If we've got lots of different ways of doing things, you don't have a standard. You don't have a national standard. How does that translate onto the fireground? Well, I think all of us will have examples of cross-border incidents where it fell down a little bit because you want to do it that way, we want to do it this way, this other county wants to do it that way. There's other questions as well that have been raised recently with cross-border incidents. Who takes control? Who takes charge? Should it be the most senior person I mean, we had this discussion, didn't we, very recently. Should it be the most senior person? Should it be the most senior person within that organisation? You know, so if the incident is in Lancashire, but there's four trucks there from Manchester, 1 truck from Lancashire, should it be the most senior person from Lancashire? Should it be the better qualified person? It's a difficult question to answer. The biggest problem that I would have with this approach is you don't get innovation, you don't get progress. The way I do things, as far as I'm concerned, is the best way. It's the way we've always done it, so I'm just going to carry on doing it. And it doesn't really matter what happens to the contrary. If I do something and as far as I'm concerned, the incident isn't really working, I can reframe that, much like Dan said earlier, I can reframe that and say, well, the fire went out, so what I did must have worked. But if we don't learn from each other, we don't innovate, we don't progress, and any changes become reactive rather than proactive. So another thing I wanted to draw on, we had Lars Axelsson come recently. I know quite a few of you know of Lars, have seen some of the stuff that he does. And when he came to us, he quite bluntly questioned entry control. And it's an interesting thing to question, is entry control. The UK is married to entry control. The rest of the world, less so. The rest of the world don't particularly do it. So his question was, why are we so married to it? Why is it that we have this one person that stands on a board, checks people in, checks people out? Are people not capable of doing that themselves? That's another discussion in itself. So he asked me the question. I said, well, the reason is because we are a reactive organisation. Something happens, and then we change. Smithfield Market, as was mentioned earlier. So Smithfield Market happens, we have 2 fatalities, now we have to change. We reacted to it. Guidelines introduced 1966 due to the Netishead incident. Again, fatalities, we introduced the guidelines nationally. We're very reactive. And what he said, the way he sort of summed it up was really, really interesting, a little bit sort of thought-provoking. He said, so basically all your policies are written in blood. And I said, well, yeah, that's actually probably the best way of putting it. And that's also why, my opinion, we're very reluctant to change, because we know that everything that we have gone through as a fire service, every sacrifice that someone else has had to make, has made us safer. The thing that we need to do is be brave and say, we're now 50 years, 60 years, 70 years later. How has the environment changed? How has the equipment changed? How has our understanding changed? And if those changes mean that we can change the policy, then we've got a duty to do that. We could be proactive now rather than reactive. We end up with lots of fire services working on exactly the same thing. And this is something that I would argue has happened for a long, long time. So a fire service wants to look at maybe making a change, and they will do a load of work on it. Maybe it's going to be, introducing a new piece of equipment. Meanwhile, at the other end of the country, another fire service is doing exactly the same work, but they have got no idea that that work is being duplicated, triplicated, even worse. So we end up with a lot of lost time with people doing exactly the same work. And let's not even get into the point where sometimes you duplicate the work and come up with a different answer, because that does happen quite a lot. And we have weaker resilience. So when there is a problem, because we've been insular, because we've been doing our own thing, and we've not really taken into account what our neighbours are doing, we've not really collaborated or built a network or engaged, when something does go wrong, we've got nowhere to turn. We've got nowhere to go for an answer, nowhere to go for support.
It is beyond a privilege to be able to bring the Firefighting podcast to you, and we are so grateful for every single person that supports, listens, shares, and follows our journey. But here's the honest truth. It takes a colossal amount of time and work to keep the podcast going. And to help us keep doing it, create more, reach more guests internationally, and make the podcast sustainable, we're asking for you to help. And to do this, we've set up a Patreon page. Now, by joining this, you'll not only support the future of the podcast, but also gain access to exclusive benefits. Now, if you've ever wanted to meet a member of the podcast, buy us a beer, buy us a coffee, and you think anything you've ever listened to on the podcast has been worth £3, that's basically what we're asking you for. By joining our Patreon community, you will get access to every single full episode archive we have ever made. Now, hundreds and hundreds of key documents that we've got in there on fire behavior, firefighter health, cancer risks, incident debriefs, and so much more. So if you feel like you want to join the Patreon crew and help us make this possible, head to patreon.com/TFFPC or check the link in any episode podcast notes.
So what was the spark for what happened with basically what is a WhatsApp group? Why did that happen? Why is it being a success? Well, first of all, in the Northwest, we had a group, an NFCC-backed group, the Northwest BA Training Managers, as it was called at the time. That's myself, Tom, Lewis, Gary that was with us yesterday. I'm not sure who's covering Cheshire now, but Cheshire in there as well. Wider than that, we've got the Isle of Man. We've also got Northern Ireland and Scotland. So Why we're still called the Northwest, I'm not sure. It should be the bulk of the North. But there we go. So that's what we had in place. And over time, because we got the right individuals in the right positions and we were having the right discussions, we started to have really, really good conversations with each other. We would move around, look at each other's fire service, start looking at each other's training, and peer assess it and do it as a critical friend. So this sort of shift from our training is better than your training, it moved more to we're happy with our training, but I really want to look at what yours is. Really interested in it. And actually, here's a few ideas. Will you come to ours and give us a few ideas? Then, through the Firefighters podcast, Pete was having a conversation with Stacco, and it was genuinely just a throwaway comment that was made as part of the podcast, which was by Stacco. Wouldn't it be nice if? Wouldn't it be good if we just had a group of people that could get together and have these discussions nationally? That's when we then created, informally, the Tactical Firefighting UK group. And as I said at the beginning, there's nothing special about it. It is a WhatsApp group. That is literally it. That is all it is. But what we did is we got key individuals. So we built on the Northwest group and we started to look at key individuals. I know there's plenty of people in this room that's part of that group as well. And we just started to bring people together to start having these. And very, very quickly, it was only 18 months ago, but very, very quickly, we started having some really, really good in-depth conversations, pretty critical conversations as well at times. And also, and this was the key, is it started to open our eyes to other ways of doing things, international best practice. That then led for me personally, earlier this year, we did the UK Tactical Firefighting Seminar. So we very, very quickly went from sort of a Northwest group to an informal national group to then having a seminar that was attended, and then obviously not up there, but you've even got today's event as well, as you know, these things progress. Barriers, where are the barriers? Yeah, there are always barriers. So one of the questions that came up earlier was about funding, and it's always a good question, funding. We don't have any funding. We're a WhatsApp group. That's all we are. What can we do about that? Well, there is something weirdly that we can do. So yesterday, did anyone get to meet Rich from the NFCC? Rich was getting involved with us with some of the practical elements that we were doing out there. We've had quite a lot of conversations with Rich recently. We've also had conversations wider with the NFCC about the issue of funding. And if anyone's aware of ORTEG, so I think it's the Operational Training Educational Group, and this concept of the College of Fire, so not the Fire Service College, but the College of Fire. So out of the Grenfell report, it's this idea that potentially we could get a group of fire services together to create effectively an open university is probably the best way of explaining it. But under that bracket, the funding becomes less of an issue because it's an opportunity for services to share resources up and down the nation and then start putting these training packages together that might be of benefit to the operational crews. So while we don't have funding, the great news is we do have that opportunity potentially in the future to collaborate and share the resources. Support, and this is where we do have to mention those that came before. So the names have been mentioned all through the day today, so obviously all the way back to Braidwood. You know, we are literally, as has been said a few times, we are standing on the shoulders of giants. Something me and Lewis both like to say about ourselves, there is absolutely nothing special about us. There's nothing special about me in particular. I'm not a scientist. I grew up in Oswald Twizzle and Accrington, so I'm not particularly clever. I went to a particularly average school. I got particularly average grades. Found out that the fire service welcome average grades, so quickly went into the fire service. But, to be honest, the fire service was everything that I ever wanted to do, so it was always great. I was never going to go for the high grades. But the thing that I'm getting at is we literally, as a group, all we do is we look for the best practice. We share these concepts, we share these ideas, and that is it. It's a conduit to allow these ideas to flow. And what's been great is to see these ideas flowing through up and down the country. Ego can be a barrier. So one of the concerns that we have had with creating a group like this is as anyone has ever been on a watch knows, you can always have that one person that can potentially disrupt. So we've been very, very keen to just make sure we have a limited number of people from each service that are very, very keen. And And we just manage the conversations, and luckily for us, the conversations have always been very, very constructive. Really positive and really constructive. As far as I'm concerned, there's no ego in that group. The other thing that we want to be very, very conscious of as well, we don't want an echo chamber. The last thing I want in that group is 100 Dave Berries that all have the same opinion, because then you're not innovating. We want people in that group, which we do have, that have a different worldview, that have different experiences, that have a different understanding. So yeah, finding the right people, that goes into everything that I've just been saying as well. Communication channels, well, basically, as I've said, it is a WhatsApp group, that is it. What we have found as well, and this is where I think potentially the pandemic, that we had, there are some positives that came out of that, one of them being this greater use of technology, this greater use of things like Teams. So while WhatsApp is the primary method of communication, we do have that opportunity to set up these little groups, these little opportunities to discuss wider issues over Teams. And we've done that extensively in the Northwest as a Northwest region. What I'm pleased to say is there's groups all up and down the country now sprouting up, having these conversations as well via Teams, driving the training on, looking at the policies, looking at the procedures, looking at what each other does. So what does the network look like? We set it up specifically to reflect the Northwest group, because the Northwest group was working, it still does work. Really, really pleased with it, very proud of it. And we have set it up to reflect that as much as possible. We've got terms of reference, much like the NFCC group that we've got. Made up of trainers and subject specialists from across the UK. So we've got Scotland, Northern Ireland, Wales and England, and plenty of discussions going on all the times. Basically, we're looking at variances in procedures, and that is something that has always fascinated me. As I said, about the directional and the compartmental. So every fire service has those discussions, which one's better, but we all ignore the fact that we just go straight to the fire. And these are the discussions that we've been having in the group as well. How would that look like if that was a policy? Sharing of best practice is probably the most important one as well. So when we find something that's good, when we find something that works, it's straight on the group, and the entire nation immediately benefits. Very, very quick to gather national information. Anyone in the room ever been asked, because you've had an idea or you've been given a job or something to do, what do the other services do? And that fills your heart with dread, because that means you've now got to pick the phone up and start asking for names of people that you don't know, in departments that you don't know, and you know absolutely certainly they are not going to get back to you within the next month. The beauty of this group is when someone asks which fire services have a guideline, which fire services don't have a guideline, just give me a minute. And within 10 minutes you'll have maybe 7 or 8 responses, which doesn't sound like a lot, but that's lightning fast compared to the history of the fire service. Fire services tend to move at around about the same rate as continents, in my experience. And support as well, so we do support each other. It's a shame that some of the people that are in that group have disappeared, because it would be good to get some of their points of view on here. When we were looking at introducing the 3-point stance, so we're talking, you've got that business, and then now we're replacing it with this.
This episode of the podcast is brought to you by Gore-Tex Professional Fabrics. Now, we all know the working environment of a firefighter is filled with challenges. We face serious risks on the job, such as heat exhaustion, burns, physical and mental stress, and we frequently come into contact with high levels of toxic chemicals. Now, I have been wearing Gore-Tex for nearly 2 decades on the front line, working in hostile environments, tackling challenging incidents from firefighting to water incidents and in urban search and rescue environments. Gore-Tex have a well-earned reputation for protecting professionals in the fire and emergency services through their family of highly innovative, waterproof, breathable moisture barriers that exceeds global performance standards and are trusted worldwide. Gore-Tex, going further together.
When those of us that have started to introduce those techniques, it was very, very difficult. It was really, really hard because, as was said, what do we like? What do we not like, Change, and we also don't like how things are. So we don't like the shuffle, but we also don't want to get rid of the shuffle. And that's where we live. It was very, very difficult. I found it personally a lot easier because Tom from Cumbria was able to go to his managers and say, we've got this technique, we're going to have a look at it, got a few photographs, got a few videos, started doing it with the trainees, started to get the wheels moving. And that was great for me because that was very supportive for me because then I was able to go to my senior officers and say, it's not just us. We're not going it alone here. There's another organisation there who we know, who we trust, that's doing this. And then, sure enough, more and more services are starting to do it. And that's that supportive network. What does the collaboration look like? So this was the seminar that we did at Manchester. So we did that in June. We had Dan speaking. Dan did very much the same presentation that he did earlier. We also had Ian Evans discuss. So if those who don't know Ian is a trainer at Fire Service College. And we set it up so that Dan was going to discuss some of the issues facing the UK Fire Service, and then Ian could come in and say, these are some of the answers. One thing about Ian that I do need to mention is Ian actually asked me after the presentation. It was in the pub, I'm not going to lie. It was in the pub. We had a bit of a drink afterwards because that's where all the real work gets done, as we all know. But Ian said to me, what I don't understand, Dave, is me and Dave Payton, who's a colleague of Ian's, me and Dave Payton have been shouting into the void for years. We have been trying to get these things changed. The 3-point stance, the water mapping, all these things. We've been trying to do this for years. Now you've come along and things are changing. What are you doing differently? And the real answer from me is I'm not doing anything differently at all. I'm not doing anything differently. The change, the difference for me is timing. The fire service just wasn't ready to change when they were shouting into the void. The door was closed. For me, the door, randomly now, and for all of us, is open. And I do believe that we are on a tipping point of significant change in the UK Fire Service. I really do. For the better as well. Dan and Ian, you can just about see Ian in the bottom there. They did their presentations. And then we went outside and we had slightly better weather in June than we've had here for the last couple of days. It's been cold, but not raining, thankfully. What was good there is we managed to get the North West Fire Services as well. It wasn't just Manchester. So there was plenty of trainers that are in the room today. So I know Kingy at the back, you were there, weren't you? Shouting at Muggsy. That's probably a highlight of the entire weekend for me. But we had trainers from across the region, from across the North West, delivering some practical sessions as well. We've now got the water mapping rig, and again, Kate, you were with us, weren't you, on this day? You're going to teach Lewis how to do this, hopefully. So this is the water mapping rig that we've now got built. So when Dan Stevens was talking earlier about a water mapping rig, this is what he was talking about. I've got a lot of stick for this, haven't I, Boxy, this unit. How much did it cost? £11,000-12,000-ish. We were quoted 30, so, I think that's a win. What's the point of it? What's the use of it? Well, you can see, do you remember when we had that slide up about braidwood? What you can do is you can direct a jet at the lintel and it'll put water in the room. Well, you can actually show people. And the beauty of this unit is, because it's made of perspex, you can stand on the outside and you can see what the water is doing. When it was built, even I was worried, because I thought, spent a bit of money on this, I really hope it's worth it. We got a crew to turn up. We got, obviously, Lancashire came. I think the Manchester Airport came, British Aerospace, a few others came. So we got a really, really good collaborative environment. And we started to deliver in it. And I think within 10, 15 minutes, it became very, very clear this was a major step forward. So I would heartily recommend to any fire service, whether you've got the capacity, the room, the space or not, try to get one of these built. Another thing about the collaboration. So this was designed by the Underwriters Laboratory. So you can get this off the internet, the plans and everything. The Underwriters Laboratory made it for free. So you can use those plans to build one. They've also created a series of lesson plans. So what we've done as well, there's a couple of adaptations we've made to this building, and we've created a lesson plan based on that. And I spoke with Rich from the NFCC yesterday, and our intent is that we will make the first standardised lesson plan for water mapping for the country. And we'll make that freely available. So the plans are available for free. We will create videos for free. South Wales, I believe, have literally just finished constructing theirs, and they've taken the lesson plans that we've created as well. We followed that up. We just did a bit more training. So that's the airport there with us doing a little bit of training. And that's been good as well. So it's not just, we do focus quite a lot on the fire services. So we do focus on, Lancashire, Manchester, Cumbria. We forget that we've got the airport and they've got a fire service. We forget that we've got British Aerospace and that they've got a fire service. So we've been very, very keen to include them. And in the group, they are in there as well. It's really, really important that they know and understand what it is that we do and are capable of, and that they train with us, because they need doctrine as well. They need operational guidance, and realistically, the aim of the game for all of us should be standardisation. What I would love one day is that I can turn out, maybe me and Lewis are in the back of a truck and we can wear BA as a team together, and it doesn't matter that we're from different counties. It doesn't matter. Shouldn't matter at all. That's the dream, isn't it? But we never know. So yeah, we had Lars, we mentioned. So that's Lars with quite a few of us. That visit would not have been possible without the group. It wouldn't have been possible without Lewis being in the group as well. Lars also, much like yourselves, visited some of the other fire services, which again, without that group, would not have been possible. Not just in the UK either. So this picture was taken in Macedonia. That's one of our ops firefighters there that you can just see at the back. That's Paul Leonard. He's one of our operational watch officers. He's also a station-based fire behaviour instructor. We went out to Macedonia with Operation Florian, and this is us delivering some of the training that we discuss as part of the group. And the intent is, again, with the group, we're going to continue doing some more of this international training, and members of the group are going to be invited to be a part of that as well. Other impact, these are just some of the comments that people within the group have offered. I think my favourite one is, it's improved me as an officer by around 30%, which is oddly specific. Yeah, that was more, yeah. But yeah, we've had quite a few success stories. I mean, there's people in the room. How many people in the room are actually being a part of that group? So, yeah. Would you say it's been beneficial for you? Yeah? I mean, feel free to throw a comment out, but no? Okay. Just yes then. It was good. Fair enough. But the people that we spoke to have said that it has helped, it has improved, not just in training, but operationally as well. And there are people in the group that are watch officers, crew managers, group managers, people that go to operational incidents. So another thing about the effective research, so we said, well, what are the other fire services doing? You know, that's the one thing. So Rich, that was here yesterday, he got in touch recently and he said, right, I've got a question. I want to know which fire services size up a fire and how do they do that. By his own admission, he said it's a very, very difficult thing to sort out. Within 4 hours, he had his answer, which again is pretty rapid by fire service standards. So we just put the question out, you know, how do you size up a fire? And that's what we got very, very quickly. So we had responses from 24 fire services within about 3-4 hours. So for those that aren't aware, be safe. That's a way of sizing up where you look at the building, you look at the environment, you look at the smoke, you look at the heat, you look at the air track, you look at the flame, and then you start to make predictions about what the fire is likely to do next. Slicers, let me see if I can remember this one. Size up, location, isolate, contain, extinguish. Sign me up on my learning. And salvage. Now, rescue and salvage, the reason that that's in brackets is even though that is in Manchester's guidance, and I have no idea why, the R and the S are put in brackets. They're just not, we're not bothered about them. It would appear in Manchester, that's fine. But you can see how quickly you can get information, you know, when we collaborate, when we work together.
MSA are supporting us on today's podcast, and I chose to partner with them because I've been wearing this stuff for nearly 20 years, and they are the global leader in development, manufacture, and supply of incredible, safe products that really protect people, not just our communities out there, but also first responders, most importantly, all over the world. Get yourself over to MSA and have a look at it. The high-performance protective clothing for emergency services responders. They also partner with us on the UK Pink Firefighters. That's because we love them. The helmets with the reflective visor, the F1XF, absolutely epic helmet. And not forgetting how they improve firefighter safety through their connectivity in the connected firefighter platform. MSA are always pushing the envelope, and it's a real privilege to be able to continue to grow our partnership together. So whether it's your PPE, your bunker gear, your helmets, your SCBA, your thermal imaging, your Luna, or your portable gas detection, both of us know that this equipment needs to work. It needs to be high quality, reliable, and dependable in the moment. And that's why I use MSA, because they know what's at stake.
So that information went back to Rich, which was good. Now, if it was just that would be good enough as itself. Now, what happened next was far more important, far more beneficial than we could have predicted. The next thing that happened was it sparked a discussion off in the group. The next question was, for those fire services that do it then, why do you do it? For those fire services that don't, why not? So those that have got Be Safe but don't necessarily officially recognise it, what's the difference? Well, we quickly identified that the fire services where the incident command training and the BA training have sort of worked on it together tended to be the organisations where it's embedded in policy, and that the organisations that didn't have that relationship, it tended not to be. Not in 100% of cases, but that tended to be the situation. So therefore, Rich then said, well, that's great information, because what that means is, if we want to embed a size-up tool, and we've decided it's likely to be Safe as a national size-up tool, maybe that doesn't fall into tactical firefighting, maybe it falls into incident command. Maybe it falls into both, but certainly we need incident command involved. Without the involvement of the group, that wouldn't have happened. In fact, without the involvement of the group, there's a chance that Be Safe would still just be a web page as far as the NFCC are concerned. More impact as well, so we're looking at introduction of different techniques of hose packs, things like that. Again, Dave Colligan's gone, which is a shame because he held some pressure and flow testing recently in the North East. I'm led to believe that's going to happen a little bit more up and down the country, that other tests are going to start up. Now, why is that important? Well, it's very important. If we go back to the initial training, who was told on initial training that for every length of 70, you lose 0.2 bar? Yeah. And it is absolute rubbish. Well, it's not absolute rubbish. It's correct if you're flowing 500 litres per minute. If you're flowing any more or if you're flowing any less, then it's incorrect. It changes. That's why the group started doing a little bit of pressure and flow testing. So in the new guidance, there is a table that tells you rough estimates of how much you're going to lose based on the flow. When we tested that in the real world, I shouldn't say that word, but you know what I mean. When we actually tested that, we found actually the figures weren't tying up to anything. So it seems there's a lot more at play. It looks like the age of the appliances, environmental factors, etc. seem to affect it massively. We've been looking at these alternative hose packs. So I said at the initial training we did coiled hose, and we pick it up and we run it out and we put it down. Then we underrun and then we coil it back up. How many people remember doing the Dutch roll? Some services still do the Dutch roll, which is great. Some services don't. Us in Manchester, we stopped doing the Dutch roll. Nobody knows why. Nobody can explain it. But we're looking at going back to that as an option. Because the benefits of the Dutch roll is you roll it out, you're still holding both couplings. So you can plug one in, put a branch in the other, or roll another one out and then you've got two lengths. You've also got your Denvers, Clevelands, etc. We've been looking at these hose packs for quite some time. They give you some benefits. When we're talking about speed of attack, that is where your hose pack can come in really, really helpful. So a Denver, for those that aren't aware of it, it basically flakes your hose out ready for you. So you put the hose down, it's flaked, pick that bit up, plug it in, and I've got a nice flake length there. Cleveland gives you some nice coils. So those of us that were doing the hose management yesterday, and we were looking at how beneficial the coils are, you put the Cleveland there, and we end up with coils. And when you do that, and when you train on it, and when you work on it, it makes you far more efficient as a firefighter. And these are techniques that we're sharing through the group as well. The BA shuffle, and that was one of the conversations that went on and on and on quite early on in the group about the BA shuffle. That is where the alternative techniques, we tested it in multiple services, multiple times, multiple ways. Targeted briefs, that's something that certainly in Manchester we've introduced. I know West Mids have had that concept for a long time. So this idea that you can use your thermal imaging camera, look at the flow path, look at the convection currents, and go against it. Things that Braidwood was doing without a thermal imaging camera, but things that we're rediscovering now. It's a shame as well, Kirsty's not here. If anyone knows Kirsty Hornby, she set up the Northwest Regional BA Challenge. So MBAC has just gone on over the last weekend, for those of you that went to it, which was great. A few months back, Kirsty set up a Northwest one as well, which I think lots of you went to. Oh, you didn't go, did you? It was Spenny, wasn't it? So we've had the Northwest Regional. Again, without the group, we wouldn't have been able to bring the people together necessarily that would have been needed to do that. But it was an extremely successful event, and that is likely to continue again next year. There's also been, and this has been great, additional network set up. So the Tactical Firefighting one was set up 18 months ago, and since then there's been an initial training one set up and one for incident command. I'm not a part of them groups because things don't get set on fire enough for me in them things, and that's what I like. If it's on fire, I'm happy. If it's not, I'll set it on fire. That's a lie. I won't. So I'm going to close it down because I know you're all ready to get going. You've not come necessarily just to listen to me go on and on and on about WhatsApp. This is an article that we picked up recently. It was really good, actually. It's a really short article, so put a QR code on in case you wanted to scan it and have a read of it, by all means. But this article is about the disconnect, the science instructor disconnect. And I think it's really pertinent to what we were discussing earlier. This idea that instructors really need to know what it is that they're delivering. And I think I've experienced this quite a few times in the past as an instructor. I've experienced it personally. I don't necessarily understand the science of what it is that I'm teaching, but I took it on face value that what I'm teaching is accurate. But it's really important that instructors have that opportunity, have that time to really get to know the subject, really get to know what it is that they're teaching in and out. Makes it far easier when you get that question from that crew. And I think any instructor knows what I mean by that. You do get sometimes faced with a question, you think, find out for me. That's the normal answer, isn't it? But that's a really good, really good article to have a look at. There is a proposal off the back of the Northwest Training Group, a request from, I think it was Dougie from Scotland actually requested it specifically, that we're going to trial a regional training event online. So what we're going to do is use Teams to deliver Be Safe to the entire region. Because, again, we identified in the group that not all the services, no one understand Be Safe, what it is, why it's relevant, etc. So that's something that we're going to look at. And if that works, that might be something that might get rolled out maybe more on a national basis, maybe on a more frequent basis as well. So we're talking earlier about the tactics or postcode. That was the actual point of the presentation. So we go all the way back, right back to the very beginning of the presentation. What we are actually trying to do with the group is to say that the postcode of the fire doesn't matter. The fire doesn't change just because I've gone from one town to another. It's exactly the same fire. So why are we fighting it in a different way? Why are we approaching it in a fundamentally different way? It makes absolutely no sense to us. So the point of the group is to strive for standardisation. That is what we are actually aiming for. So through the NFCC, there is going to be a national group on tactical firefighting. That is a definite. So there is definite work happening. So for anyone that is asking, will this make a difference? Yes, it will make a difference. The difference is definitely happening. We are definitely on the verge of significant change, and the NFCC definitely bought into that as well. We are going to be looking at standardisation nationally, and we're going to be using the lessons that you've given us as well about how to create doctrine. We're going to use those lessons to make sure that anything that we put out there is important. I know we had a quick chat earlier as well about some of the issues that we have. So in closing, I'll sort of leave you with my last thoughts on national guidance. So I said this to Rich yesterday. I said, if you want me to be bluntly honest, here's my criticism of national operational guidance as it stands. We identify the hazard, and the hazard is backdraft. We then identify the control measure, and the control measure is the fire service shall put in place mitigation techniques for the backdraft. Then we move on to the next one, and I said, well, hang on a minute. What's the control measure? That's the missing link. What are we going to do? Am I going to dance at the backdraft, and then the next fire service is going to look at it really sternly, and the next one's going to throw a lot of water in? What's the standard? That's what we need to do. That's what we need to agree on. And that is where we're going to take it next. That is what we're going to look at. The bottom line is, because we're going to do all that work together, because we're stronger when we train together. And I fundamentally believe that. Fundamentally. Thank you.
Well, that's it for today, folks. Hope you took a lot away from that episode. We started the Firefighters podcast to develop, inspire, connect, motivate, represent, and most importantly, celebrate the world of incredible emergency services operators and the wider sector through this series of wide-ranging conversations. We really love creating this podcast and bringing it to so many people. Did you know you can also find these on YouTube? We do a lot of video podcasts now. You can head over to our YouTube page and follow, subscribe there. And as a final ask from us, whatever platform you're on, please rate the podcast. It really helps us as a key performance indicator to reach more and more people. I've been your host, Pete Wakefield. This has been the Firefighters Podcast. And wherever you are in the world, please stay safe, be happy, live with intention, and where possible, please remember and support your firefighters and first responders. I'll see you next time.